Yeah, it's an honor to be here today. And as Helena said, I'm from Stanford. I'm a founder of Stanford Blockchain Accelerator. We help the top project from Stanford blockchain ecosystem. For instance, like we helped Caldera, Nexus Labs, Zero G, Modules Labs, among others, and also founded the Stanford BAS conference affiliated to Stanford Blockchain conference or Science of Blockchain conference. Also teach in Stanford on Web3 entrepreneurship. And I also have a fund called the Blockchain Builders Fund. That being said, I'm going to talk today, the topic is going to be like the convergence of blockchain and AI. So I'm trying to use some events in the past, in the history, trying to see the future, right? And also trying to be generic enough so that we don't lose any folks in the audience. So we didn't dive too much into the details and the technical aspects, more like high level, and be able to like kind of be like generic enough for the mass to follow. A little bit of agenda. So I'm gonna have kind of the technology, political, social, economic context, and then give some background there. And then second is like gonna talk about why I think AI will need blockchain and crypto eventually. So right now, not so much so. Most of folks doing crypto AI is actually crypto folks, and AI people actually do not like blockchain and crypto. And I'll explain a bit why and why it's going to change. And then kind of very briefly later on, like today's crypto AI world, like some of the projects I saw. And then lastly, why I think Polkadot could be very interesting. It's already interesting, but it could be even more interesting for crypto AI. So we start with the technical or technology kind of overview, right? If we look at the history, so we have several industrial revolutions, right? The first industrial revolution was mechanization, steam engine. Second industrialization, with industrial revolution with like the petroleum, the electricity, steam, steel production, railroad, etc. And then third industrial revolution, we start to have a computer, and we start to enter the information age, right? We're gonna have we had a computer, we have internet, a mobile phone, etc., etc. And that's kind of the beginning of a digital age or information age. What are we used to in the past, like how government work, how society functions, actually based on the physical world, right? The Greek philosophers, and which we inspire a lot, how the government functions, we inspire from them, and also the classic philosophers like John Locke from England, and the French Revolution guy and the French philosophers. They do not know what's computer, and they do not know what is internet. So a lot of their theories and principles were based on the physical world. That's how the government and society functions. However, we have a new challenge today, which is digital world, which is like we're trying to replicate how physical world functions onto a digital world. That's why we have Balaji, which you can argue is like a John Locke or Rousseau of our age, to try to come up with some theories called network state of how country and society should function in a borderless digital world, which is totally different than the physical boundaries that we have in the physical world. And also some early experiment on DAO and etc. on how things should function, because in the digital world, which is totally different than the physical world. And then also the payment and financial system we have, or the fintech, also the Wall Street, how it functions, have a lot of legacy debt and a lot of past dependency. They started with a colonization, with seafaring from Europe to the rest of the world, and how to finance and sponsor the large ships going out from Europe to other places. So there's a lot of historical rules and regulations, and then technology was born way after. So the technology was doing is just to automate all those legacy obsolete rules. And crypto and DeFi, on the other hand, they do not care any of the rules. They just want to serve the underlying human need without caring like whatever the historical rule were there without computer. Similarly, like data, you can say like the petroleum energy-ish. I think that's kind of self-explanatory-ish. And then generative AI use like manufacturing, just like physical world, they're manufacturing physical objects. And then generative AI, you can also argue, is like manufacturing digital content. And it seems like AI care only about the digital world. And yeah, so this is kind of what I'm trying to say about the construction of a digital world and the technical concept. And from social, economic, and political aspect, it's also very interesting. That I'm trying to set up the background to kind of come up with an argument why long-term blockchain and AI will merge. So we seem to enter a second Cold War where like different factions like Russia, China, and Europe or US entering different factions. And then we have people like a country like US have historically like very predominant in technical aspect like Facebook and Google, and other countries like Brazil and Southeast Asia and Africa tend to be consumer of the content, which you can argue is some sort of colonialism, right? So they are just providing raw material data, and then the big country like US and then China produce models, and then they just consume the result of the models. But then they start to have some of techno-nationalism, which this country want to be independent, and they want to have their own technology stack. And blockchain, as the government has still come to know what blockchain is, still a lot of taboo around blockchain, and they eventually will think it's like blockchain could serve as infrastructure for those countries, those countries that want to have techno independence as the infrastructure for digital sovereignty and develop their own infrastructure, independent of the global superpowers. Another thing is blockchain lets you create a rule that's transparent, verifiable, traceable, because we're increasingly entering into a divided world where those factions don't trust each other. You have other countries like maybe India or some other countries trying to play neutral role. So there are a lot of, there will be increasing like this mistrust among parties, and blockchain seems to be the perfect tech stack for different parties that's already proven in the DeFi world, for different parties that do not have trust with each other to collaborate. So I strongly believe that blockchain will eventually serve as a global collaboration layer for parties that increasingly mistrust or distrust each other. So that's kind of the background I'm trying to set. And then, so why AI need a blockchain? So right now, all the big AI players, you know, like OpenAI, Microsoft, Anthropic, Amazon, Google, etc., they actually don't care about crypto or think crypto is or blockchain is not that important, play a secondary role or even like lesser than secondary role. And what they care is continue with performance improvement, right? They only care about less hallucination, less mistake, more efficient, more faster and better response. They was like a little bit like the Gilded Age, if you know American history, in the late second half of 1800, where those big companies like Standard Oil and the big steel company, they only care about profit. They don't care about anything else, and they're massively profitable. You have Rockefeller, which is like very rich, and then state coming and came up with antitrust law in the 1890s, in the early 1900s, and dismantled a lot of the trust. Like big trust means like big companies. I think government eventually is always lagging, will come out with some rule that we already see early sign that will mandate those big players to care about something else other than performance and profitability. Those factors could be privacy, preservation, data ownership. The EU, European Union, is leading the charge with GDPR and some other data privacy rule that's actually mandating Google and OpenAI to follow. As a matter of fact, Italy, which is a democratic country, temporarily banned OpenAI for several months due to the potential violation of the privacy. So we can totally see that with ZK and blockchain, EU, once the government learn a little bit more, they'll push heavily for those big corporate model, centralized model to bend over and do more user protection and privacy preservation. And also, I mentioned techno-nationalism. A lot of the countries, smaller countries, they probably embrace a tech that's a little bit friendlier to them instead of a big centralized AI, which only care about performance and seems to favor big countries and conglomerate. And then obviously, blockchain is perfect for transparency, explainability, traceability, and verifiability. Which all like desirable factors or characteristic features. However, the big centralized AI wouldn't want. So we need some push mandate from the government, regular body, once they learn a little bit more about how AI works, to mandate those companies to follow certain rule. Yeah, and also on the performance side, actually, decentralized AI, although could not compete against centralized AI, it could still have some potential kind of improvement on the performance side. For instance, edge AI, where you have edge devices like Apple Intelligence, for instance, they're using, because actually it's a taboo, as I mentioned, blockchain AI, so they're actually using blockchain-ish technology behind the scene, but they're not mentioning it, just because the taboo nature of a blockchain. There's several other edge AI companies where they use blockchain as kind of a coordination layer to feed the intelligence you earn from the edges to the center. And then obviously aggregated GPU to kind of address some of the shortage and scarcity of a GPU. And then I made a distinction here, the blockchain and crypto. So blockchain is more like the tech infra, and crypto is more like incentive layer on top. You have token, etc. So I would say like AI will need a crypto part as well, because digital world is so new that have never seen and needed to transact autonomously before. So as a fintech, you always have to transact with the banks and physical world, right? And same other fintech solution as well. However, in the crypto world, AI agents do not care US dollar. They're not like human beings. You care about US dollar. They don't care. They probably care some symbol like what's the kind of this transaction, how much gas fee. They care much more about gas fee rather than US dollars, right? They're different denomination for value for them. So naturally, it just makes sense for them to need crypto to interact with each other. And then also crypto seems to work well, actually proven with BitTensor and several other companies as incentive layers. And also actually I would say crypto has found product market fit-ish financialization of any asset. And then, so that's a case where they can potentially, they can serve even more so as an incentive layer for models that have hard time finding business model or revenue model, like open source model and tools that provide huge value but can't get compensated. So I reiterate some of the use cases I mentioned, like financial infra, digital sovereignty, digital identity and data ownership, privacy preservation, edge AI, and aggregated GPU. And quickly kind of going through, and these are some of the company I saw on the different scenario I said. One point I want to mention is you might argue that crypto AI seems to be very fluffy. So I will also use history again. So we have the internet as a perfect example of how technology is very similar, I would say more similar to crypto than like, I don't know, steam engine or like electricity, right? So actually internet also been through up and down, especially the dot-com bubble. There's a case for Instacart, which we know found product market fit-ish, have a huge user base, etc. But there's already a counterpart early days in the late 90s called Webvan. They're one of the biggest failure of the dot-com bubble. And they're actually exactly doing Instacart. But they're like probably 10 or 20 years too early, where the logistics are there, the cost is too high, no one know how to use the internet, you don't have enough user habit, etc. So some of this company, the vertical I think makes sense, theoretical, intuitive makes sense, but might not be the case where it's ready for it to be mature, and may depend on other ecosystem to be mature for them to bear fruit, to make sense. So I'm listing the company here, probably a lot of them will die, just how technology works, but a lot of the verticals might evolve into something that's more meaningful, just like the case for Webvan and Instacart. Lastly, I want to mention Polkadot. I think Polkadot is quite interesting because I have already proven and I think have also more potential. So proven in the past, but also future the potential. Past is actually BitTensor, which is pretty successful in terms of the impact, but also successful in terms of financial values, right? So the success of BitTensor is largely due to relatively stable and mature technology infra they have been using, which is the Substrate SDK, right? That help them to interoperate and among different on-chain, off-chain as well, among different subnetwork, but also like it's like the right infra to scale, right? If they need to scale, which is a case to become massively successful, they have no challenge to scale it up, right? Versus using some amateur, unproven tech stack. And also the security model is decently robust that they haven't, based on my knowledge, like too much of challenges of security as well. So the reason why I think Polkadot could be interesting or is interesting, just because I have already proven with big tensor case that they are good enough and can scale up once you become big for crypto AI and blockchain AI project. With that, I'll conclude my presentation. So hopefully give you some food for thoughts around blockchain AI and crypto AI. As I mentioned, we're still early, so there'll be a lot of interesting and exciting areas you can explore. So, thank you.
Thank you, Quinn. Thank you. Oh, you can leave the mark on the desk. Yeah. All right, so